Hey guys, Saf coming at you with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and in today's video we have got something that I have been trying to achieve for over 18 months completed. For the first time, I have managed to build a new clan boss team that kind of replaces Bateater a little bit, or is an alternative to Bateater, but I've been trying to do this for such a long time. So if you're interested in seeing a different version of Bateater, watch this video. So, of course, what I am talking about is a variation to Bateater. If you don't know what Bateater is, you can head over to DeadwoodJedi.com. We're going to have a look at it here now quickly, and we'll have a look at the main issue that we have with Bateater. So you can head over to DeadwoodJedi.com here, and you can basically see things. It's a Hydra Creator Clash going on at the moment. If you haven't checked it out, go check out the Hydra Creator Clash. It's really, really cool. 8 content creators are facing off in a tournament bracket taking on Hydra. But that is not the purpose of this video. In this video, we want to look at Bateater. And you can basically find any kind of speed tunes here. There's a Rabbit Bateater, there's a Hell Bateater, but the one that I was looking at is Bateater. This is one of, if not probably the most popular clan boss team in the entire game based on our data at Hellhades.com. People run this team. Even though Demytha teams are much easier to run, they still run their Bateater. It's a reliable, it's an affinity friendly, it works on all difficulties, it's a great team. But the problem with Bateater, as you can see here, is it requires 2 man-eaters to begin with, and it required the Painkeeper to put the man-eaters into the right setup because it reduces the cooldown of the man-eater A3, which is obviously on a 5 turn, you need it on a 4 turn. And you have Seeker. So really, none of these champions do your normal debuffs of decreased defense and weaken. That is a problem. It means that your DPS is kind of shrunk down into minimum decreased defense, but probably you want a decreased defense and a weaken. Someone like a Bellinor, a Dracomorph, a Venus, those types of champions. And it doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility in this team, which is why a lot of people moved away from Bateater a little bit, because the Mytha allows you to run a Myth Fu or a Myth Air, or you can run the Myth Watchers team, or a bunch of other different things. You basically have a lot more flexibility to use a lot more different champions, where if you want a 1 key with this team, you're kind of forced into this room of you need to bring one of those decreased defense and weakened DPSs. Now, what I would say is the pool of available champions has improved from the last time that I ran this team about 18 months ago, and there are a lot more decreased defense and weakened champions in one kit that are available. The most common champion used here is probably Thane, an epic fusion champion back in the day that was basically given out to everyone. Had decreased defense, weaken, poisons, everything you could possibly ask for. But my goal with this was, can we find a replacement for Painkeeper? Because essentially Painkeeper is in here just to reset the cooldown. It's not a substantial amount of damage. It's not terrible. It's not a bot, but it's just not crazy damage. So you really kind of like, it forces even more pressure on your DPS. So the idea with the team was, can we replace Painkeeper with an alternative champion? Now, there are not that many reset skill champions in the game. Obviously, everyone knows about Yumiko and Kaima. They're the ones that can reset a substantial amount of the cooldown, either a 3 to 4 turn or a full reset. And then, of course, the budget option is Renegade. But the problem with those options is they do either too many turns or they do it on a weird cooldown. Now, the one champion that would be compatible here is Countess Lix. So Countess Lix came out alongside Astralon, who is a fusion, and she is a pretty beastly kind of champion, really. It's kind of one of those champions you don't really see an awful lot, but when you do, you kind of get really destroyed by some of her kits. She has this passive where she will fill her own turn meter by 5% every time an ally receives a debuff. This is massively underestimated in a lot of PvP context. In a lot of PvE high-end Doom Tower, you can quickly find the Countess Lix jumping ahead of the turn meter if you put in a double debuff AoE on 5 enemies. That's a lot of turn meter. So she's kind of really strong for this passive here. She also has another passive when she's with Astralon, where she will cleanse 1 debuff, a bit like Siphi and Rotus's passive, but nowhere near as strong. The main reason why we are looking at her is she has a 7 turn but booked a 5 turn cooldown, where she will place block active skills. Doesn't work in Clan Boss, so we forget that. And a decrease the cooldown of all ally skills except this champion's by 1 turn. So essentially you get this kind of same concept as Painkeeper, where you're reducing the cooldowns. Now, the only issue with Countess Lix is this is on a 5 turn cooldown when booked, not a 4 turn cooldown like Painkeeper's. So you can't just literally plug and play. It requires a different speed tune. But if you can do it, you have an A1 weaken. with a 50% chance on a double hit, so it's pretty much guaranteed. You don't really care about this A2 because you can't really place decrease speed or decrease turn meter, but in other contexts of the game, the A2 is kind of nuts. You kind of get this combination where you lock up the skills, you slow them down, you decrease the turn meter, and also you're boosting your own if they do manage to get a turn. It's a very powerful duo when you put Astralon and Lix together. Astralon, of course, brings the stun. But what we're looking at is, can we replace the Painkeeper with this champion? Because if we can get a weaken, then that single DPS slot now can be anyone with decreased defense. And we can put Relentless. We can do anything with it because that's the value of Bateater. It doesn't depend on increased speed. If you have a clan boss team that requires you to use increased speed, such as the Demitha teams pretty much, they all use kind of like Ares or Elva or something of that nature, then you can't really run Relentless because you outrun the speed buff in different places and it breaks the speed tune. There is one version of one team that can do it with Elderskarg because he places a speed buff on an A1, but even that's a little bit hit and miss. It's not like 100% always going to work. There's some weird things that go on with that. So generally means if you're running increased speed, you can't run Relentless. However, with Bateater, we're not running increased speed. We're using Seeker's Boost to get you into that 2-1 ratio, so you can run as much Relentless, extra turns, different conditions as you want. Those champions like Marksman, who could be really, really good, except for the fact he does this silly little thing where he will say, I've got a 25% chance of getting an extra turn. Otherwise, he's a really solid poisoner. A 5% poison on an A1 every time he critically hits, and a chance to fully ignore defense. But the problem is, it's like not a consistent extra turn. If we knew it would always happen, then you can do something about it, which would never happen on an A1, of course, because otherwise he would always take a turn. But because it's not consistent, you can't put him in a clan boss team, which is really frustrating because it kind of reduces his value. Because to be honest, you look at this champion and go, well, placing poisons on an A1 is a clan boss or a dragon thing. I'd really like to do that more often. The A2 is kind of like not really, but you get a fill by 20%. But you have to be careful, of course, using this if you're going to use this, because if he gets extra turns in a weird way and you've enabled this ability, then again, you're going to break your speed tune. So that's the issue with the champions. Now, what I've managed to do after talking about this for 7 minutes is actually make it possible. So we actually can make a Bateater variant that uses Countess Lix, which we can call the LixEater, which, that might be a bit of a weird name. We might need to rename it, but hey, we always have fun naming these things. Now, the champion that I wanted to test this out was a champion that I've been using on the free-to-play, and I've been very impressed with him. He's a relatively new champion, part of the new faction, and that champion is, of course, Mistrider Daithi, which we've got here. Now, Mistrider Daithi is a bit like Marksman. He's got a 10% chance on the A1 of getting an extra turn. He gives himself a guaranteed extra turn, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown. And then if he places decreased defense, he'll get another extra turn. So he's a bit of an extra turn machine. He does go crazy. Now, some nuances with this kit in the sense that the A2 will only actually grant the extra turn if you physically place the debuff. So if the debuff is of a similar duration or greater, say like there's a 3-turn duration on the boss, then he won't get an extra turn because he didn't actually place the debuff on the boss, because he couldn't. The duration was already too long. We see this a little bit with the Razelvarg passive. You have to physically place the speed buff. So if an ally has a speed buff of a greater duration, then he doesn't place it, so he doesn't get the bonus for that particular ally. So it works similarly here. So he doesn't always get an extra turn here, but it's pretty cool that you basically go A3. He gives himself increased accuracy and increased attack, which is great. It means you don't have to run another attack booster. He also can kind of fill in the gaps. If he's taking lots of extra turns, he'll outrun the Seeker boost. Doesn't matter, he's going to always be under increased attack, but he's also under increased accuracy, which means you don't need as much accuracy to land the debuff, which is what you would require. Books wise, he's pretty okay. So you're looking at maximum like 6 books, which is really, really good for an epic. You get a 40 accuracy aura as well, which you can use to try and reduce the aura again, the accuracy requirements again in the battle. And you do have a nifty little thing to like remove a buff on the A1, which does actually come in handy more often than not, alongside his extra turn. So you can see you kind of A3 into A2, that gives him another extra turn into A1, you got another chance to get an extra turn, and of course you run him in Relentless, so that's got an extra turn. You can see where I'm going with this. So I've actually built the team. We'll have a look at the speed tune here, we'll have a quick look at the builds, and then I'm going to show you how absolutely insane Mistrider Daithi is for this. We are talking a champion that can take 8 turns, not 7. The thumbnail may be a little bit of bait. He's not quite 7-1 consistently. He can take 8 turns before the clan boss takes another turn. 8 turns, 8-1. We're talking crazy amounts. So let's have a look at the speed tune then. Now, this is not exactly what I would call an accessible build. It is a very fast build here. You can see we have got a Countess Lix running at 337 speed. You could adjust it a little bit depending on sets, but the Maneater, she has to go before the blue Maneater here, and if she isn't running at 337, she can't quite do it. So you could obviously use a DPS with an aura. If there was a DPS with a speed aura, that would bring your speeds down. We're not using an aura here, so we're having to run at 337 speed. 278 for the Maneaters, but the purple Maneater needs to go before the green Maneater, so you can see the set combinations are very important here. One's running speed, one is not, so one is slightly slower based on the way that it translates the base. Then we've got the Seeker at 254, and we've got Mistrider Daithi at 240. There's a little bit of flexibilities in these speeds. You can adjust it. As I said, if you bring an aura, you can drop the speeds down, and then it becomes a little bit more accessible. What kind of speed turns we have? You can see we kind of fall into speed tune by 4. It's not full auto from the start, but you can basically go auto from the end of turn 1. So it's a very small setup. We have to just delay the Countess Lix A3 by 2 turns, so A1, A1, A3, and we also have to delay one of the Maneaters, so he goes A2, A1, A2, A3. But basically after the end of turn 1 here, after the end of AoE2, you can press auto and it will stay in tune. You also have to take into account the Countess Lix passive, but regardless of what happens here, it's okay, because even if we get the boost on the Countess Lix at the end of AoE 1 on Void, because obviously the poison happens on the end of AoE 1, she's already going to take a next turn anyway, so it doesn't matter how much more turn meter she would gain there. And if we look at Spirit here, you can see it's fully friendly. As long as Mistrider Daithi doesn't go too ham, it doesn't really matter because she can support 10%. She just needs to basically have less than whatever Seeker has here. So she should always be okay. But just be mindful that if you are failing, it's probably because Mistrider Daithi took an extra turn, lost his block debuff, which meant that it was more than just Seeker that had the debuff, because obviously she would get 10% fill there. But that's the only points you need to worry. The rest of the time, it is fully affinity friendly. It's also fully difficulty friendly. You can see I can go down to brutal. It always falls into line. So how does it stay in unkillable? Well, basically, the Maneaters are running out on a 2-1 ratio, but the Countess Lix is running on what we would call an 8-3. She's going 3-2-3, 2-3-2. So she's alternating, essentially. You can see she takes 3 turns here, 2 turns here, 3 turns here. We're having to do that because she is on a 5-turn cooldown, not a 4-turn cooldown. So we have to make sure that the A3 falls in the right location. So it has to alternate here. And what you can see is the Maneaters will place the A3. So the purple Maneater is going to go A3, A1, A3. And then the next round, he's going to go A1, A3, A1. So he's alternating where he places the unkillable. And the other Maneater then is taking the weight. So as long as your Mistrider Daithi completes all of his extra turns before the Maneaters take a turn, he can take as many turns as you want. Now you can see here by default, he should, without any Relentless or any extra turn mechanics, take 4 turns per clan boss turn. But he actually can take a hell of a lot more, because essentially the A3 is a guaranteed extra turn. And if the clan boss has taken a turn, if you avoid Master Hexer, then the A2 is a guaranteed extra turn. So if you can cycle back around to your A3 and A2, you can actually get a bonus number of extra turns. And the Relentless set then can roll alongside those extra turns. So you can really kind of get loads and loads and loads of extra turns going. I'm going to show a clip of the run that I recorded earlier, because I wanted to calculate exactly how many turns he takes. And I will show you some runs where he is taking 8 turns in one clan boss rotation. It's quite insane. So we can see he's running around about 4-1 here, essentially. Now, of course, he's not attacking on the A3, so he's only doing 3 damage in attack. So technically, he's running 3-1. Seeker's running on a usual 3-1, but technically 2-1 because he's taking that extra turn here. And then, of course, Countess Lix is running on a ratio. Now, Countess Lix damage is okay. It's not crazy, but it's decent. So how have we built these champions? These are the thing. I'll put this link in the description of this video. You can go check it out if you want to try and do it. You can pretty much run anything in the Mistrider Daithi slot, although you probably want a decreased defense champion to do it. But keep in mind that anything that does self-boosting turn meter will cause a problem. Anything that boosts AoE turn meter or increased speed, avoid those champions. But if a champion just deals damage with decreased defense, he's a great option here, and they can run in Relentless, they can do whatever they want. It is pretty absurd. Like, I'm pretty sure I could run Shemnath in here and just keep going extra turns all the time because it would be very strong. So my account now, as I said in my last video, is leveraging some bonuses from the new area bonuses. I have put 12 points. I've got 12 speed coming out of the area bonuses for Clan Boss, and I've got a few in like ignore defense and crit damage, but those are pretty negligible, right? 9% crit damage is pretty okay, but it's not the end of the world. But the main thing is I've got 12 speed, so accessing the higher speeds for me is a little bit easier. I don't have to build them so fast. So the main challenge will be, can you hit the Countess Lix speed? Now, I don't have a blessing on Countess Lix. Brimstone would add a lot more damage to my thing, but you can see I've managed to hit it in sort of just broken sets. We're at 325 speed because I've got the area bonus. So if I apply the area bonus, you can see I go up to 337, and I'm at about 4.7k attack, 167% crit damage, with around about 313 accuracy, which is obviously too much, but it's just because of the way it's worked out. And of course, we've got a little bit of ignore defense there. So we've got a standard mastery set here in the support tree because I was just trying to get as much speed as I can. And to be honest, it's not 100% of the weekend, so Sniper and Master Hexer will help. So I've just gone down for the Laura Steel to get a little bit more accuracy and also a little bit more speed because it is the hardest one to build. I'm fortunate enough to have a 6-star soul and a 5-star soul for Maneater. I'm not really sure where they've come from. I haven't bought many souls on my account. I think I've bought in total 3 packs. I've obviously gone for the Hero Path event things, and I've also tried to get them from normal game modes, but the only packs I've ever bought is when it's normally 2 tier 1 soul stones for $1 when they're really, really good value. Otherwise, I don't buy souls because I feel like they're a little bit overpriced still. But we have got lucky, so we've gone for a 6-star Cruelty and a 5-star Phantom Touch. Now, we did do the math on stream the other night. If you want to go check my past live streams, we did the math, and it worked out that a 6-star Cruelty would produce overall more damage for the team than a 6-star Phantom Touch. Obviously, at 6-star, the Phantom Touch becomes guaranteed, and you also get the bonus chance to do damage. Whereas at Cruelty, you get 5% more decreased defense on the boss. So it worked out that the boss would just be more, the team would just deal more damage that way. So that's the route we went. We put the higher blessing with Cruelty, and these Maneaters will be in the standard Bateater setup. What is the standard Bateater setup? You take Grim Resolve because you're probably going to be on lower HP more often than not. You take Life Drinker so that you can heal back up to 50%, so that when you get attacked, you can proc Retribution, because when you lose 25% of your max HP, you have a 50% chance to counterattack. So that's how you can leverage more damage. So we're basically using Life Drinker to create the possibility for Retribution, which is then going to give us extra damage. And we're just running War Master, and we're running the standard things here. If I move my head out of the way, like Methodical for the A1, and obviously bring it down. And then these extra on Cycle of Violence doesn't really matter, right? Nobody's ever going to be dying. There's no benefit from having these other blessings in here, so we just took the one for big damage hit if we use it in any other content. And you can see the other Maneater is set up exactly the same way, except he has got Retribution. So one Maneater at the moment still needs a few more masteries. I'm not sure out of the 4 Maneaters why I managed to 6-star awaken the one without masteries, but I did, so I had to go and grind them. Next up, we are using my second Seeker. Obviously, I have a fully awakened Seeker. We're not using that one, so we don't break the Razelvarg speed tune. So we've got a backup Seeker here that we have built. Yes, I know people in chat are probably molding, going, why are you using duplicate champions for Clan Boss you've already solved? This is enjoyment for me. This is what I get a lot of fun for. We've gone a similar route. This is a Bateater setup where, again, you want Retribution with Life Drinker, and of course, he hits twice, but War Master. We've gone for an extra thing with Stoke to Fury here. I don't really see the value in deterrence because none of my team gets stunned. So there's no value here. So I might as well just take Stoke to Fury, because if I happen to attack with a Void, like a poison, or if I attack with a decreased attack or something of that nature, it probably won't happen that often. But in any other content, it's okay, right? These extra slots are really irrelevant. You don't get any value from them. And then finally, we have the Mistrider Daithi build, the man of the moment. He is in 3-star blessing here. All the other champions, by the way, including Seeker, are in Phantom Touch. There's not really any value for this team to have anything other than Phantom Touch after you've got a Cruelty and after you have got Brimstone in the team. There's no other blessings that would be valuable. So we've got him in 3-star Phantom Touch, so we're getting 30% chance. And he's fully booked. And of course, we have got him in Relentless. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any revenge gear, because what I chose to do in the end with the masteries, he's actually quite a technical champion to build. And the reason why he's quite technical is the way that this A2 is going to operate. Now, in some respects, you could choose to go for Master Hexer, because at times, if you get bad extra turn rotations where you haven't got the ability to get back to your A3 for whatever reason, maybe the reset hasn't tied in with the Countess Lix reduce skill duration, so you go A1, A1 instead of an A3 again, you lose decreased defense for a couple of turns. Now, the problem if you go Master Hexer is right now he places decreased defense for 2 turns, which means once the clan boss takes a turn, he's almost guaranteed to get an extra turn because he's going to replace that debuff. If you were to go to Master Hexer, there's a very strong likelihood that he could go on for 3 turns. The subsequent one then only goes on for 2 turns. The boss has taken a turn, it's on 2 turns. You don't get that extra turn. So you're reducing the roll rate of your extra turn, which I think is a problem. I've also chose to go Cycle of Magic over a counterattack on the A1. You can't proc extra turns from a counterattack for everything that I know about the game. If I counterattack, I can't proc the extra turn. But what I can do is proc Cycle of Magic. And we worked out on stream that statistically speaking, when you're running a 50-turn unkillable clan boss team, you have around 16 counterattacks coming out from this retribution, because one of them is a stun target. If you happen to take that stun, then you can proc off that, but it's unlikely he's going to get picked for various different reasons. So you're only really doing it on the 2 AoEs, and it only works half the time. So basically 16 AoEs can happen times 2, so 16 attempts. Now, when you counterattack, you have a penalty. If you're not aware of this, when you counterattack with an A1, you lose 25% of your damage. It is a penalty for counterattacking, which means that on average, those 16 then become 12 normal A1s. So in my head, I was thinking, well, I get 12 Cycle of Magic procs on average based on the number of turns he's taking, because this can happen every time he takes a turn. So if I manage to proc Cycle of Magic on an A3, that will give me a guaranteed extra turn, which gives me another A1. So the likelihood is I'm probably going to take more A1s from Cycle of Magic than I would Retribution, purely because of the way that I can cycle back around to that A3 extra turn. And we then took Lasting Gifts just because we self-buff, so we might as well extend those buffs a little bit. And of course, we can take Laura Steel, not because it really benefits the Relentless set, but if I was to pair it with a Cruel set, we get a little bit more attack if that was to come in. So that's kind of like the technical aspects with his build a little bit. And then finally, what have we built him in? He is built at 5.3k attack, 280% crit damage at 240 speed. You can see I've only built him with 150 accuracy because I'm going to be getting 40 accuracy from the aura because he's going to be in the leader. So we're at 190 and he's going to increase his own accuracy. He doesn't need any more than 150 to land the debuffs. So we can basically ignore accuracy, all out on damage, 5.3k. He is also waiting on Ascension upgrades for his gear. There's another 16% crit damage to come here. There is another 14% attack percentage to come here. There's more flat attack here. We could get flat attack here. There's potential for him to get up to about 5.6, 5.5k attack with probably close to 300% crit damage after I've fully upgraded everything and we've optimized it where we can. So yeah, so that is the build. That is the team. In terms of the setup, I have chosen to disable the Countess Lix A2 because I want more opportunities to get the weaken, and because the A2 and A1 multipliers are actually kind of similar anyway, so you don't really lose any damage. The Man-Eaters, you just prioritize A3 and A2, so A3 1, A2 second, just because you want to use Siphon, and then we're just prioritizing the Mistrider Daithi. Mistrider Daithi will always use A2 before A3 for some reason as a normal AI, so we tell him to use his A3, then his A2. It's quite frustrating. I don't know why he does that. So let me show you the run and just show you some highlights from that run. So you can see I'm just going to open up the run here. It is a manual setup, so it's not a complicated manual setup. It's just delaying a few skills. There's no real way you can make it full auto, unfortunately. But it's in the end of the world, like once you've done it about 5 times, it's probably really not a problem. You'll probably remember it off the top of your head. It's not like you have to go like 6 turns deep. So Countess Lix is going to come in with the A2. We actually got unfortunate at the start of this run that Mistrider Daithi didn't place decreased defense. He 3%ed. That can happen with every champion unless it's guaranteed. So we didn't get that extra turn on the one. But you can see here now, once we get going, he's going to basically remove that buff, which is kind of handy if it was like in other content. In Clan Boss here, it doesn't really matter because we're not taking an awful lot of damage. We're not taking any damage early on, so it doesn't really matter. But it's nice to remove it, especially if there was any sort of effects which required you to have a champion alongside it or something of that nature. I don't know. For Clan Boss, it doesn't matter. But let's just see now how it starts ramping up. The Man-Eaters actually hit really freaking hard. They hit very, very hard. It's actually quite surprising. The Siphon A2 can basically knock out around about 300,000 when they get going. We're just still ramping up. We get into tune around about now. We should now be in tune. So he's going to go extra turn, extra turn, extra turn. You can see that real good setup where you get those 3 kind of back to back. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to skip forward to a particular turn where he took 8 turns in one go. So in this turn here at turn 33, you're about to see how many times he can actually take an extra turn if the RNG kind of goes in his favor. We'll start it up and we'll start counting here and we'll see how he goes. He's running at times 2. I can't really control the speed. But here we go. We're going to go in at turn 33 here. As you can see, he's not getting stunned because he's strong affinity in this particular boss. So we go 1 extra turn 2, extra turn 3, extra turn 4, extra turn 5, extra turn 6, 7. 7 extra turns in one go. It's absolutely bonkers, and it's so fun to watch him do this when he goes off on one. Now, he's probably only going to get 1 extra turn here because he's kind of like used all of his... He's almost like gone, I've had a very long round this time, and I need a bit of a sit down. But just the amount of crazy damage he does when he's just like extra turn, extra turn, extra turn. Let's just have a look at how hard Mistrider Daithi actually hits as well. So we're getting a 187 A1, then 170 A2. It's just bonkers. It's really crazy. You can see the 30,000s that are coming in there is the Phantom Touch proc, because that's about 3.5 times his attack, ignoring 30% defense. They did nerf it, unfortunately. But in terms of like a 1-key potential, it comfortably 1-keys. It really does. Is it as strong as like the myth, like the Whale Buster or like the Rabbit Eater that I posted a couple of days ago? No. But it's a different type of team. Now, if you've got the counter 6, you can get these speeds, and it opens up the opportunity for you to run different DPS options here. You can see he's off he goes again. Extra turns, more extra turns. It's so fun to watch. I really get excited watching him. On my free-to-play, he has transformed my account. He is now my campaign farmer. He is my main nuker in arena. He outvalues Gembo for me. He's Force Affinity, which deals with a lot of magic affinity nukers, which is really good. And yeah, so that is the LixEater in work. You can basically run anyone in Daithi's spot who has decreased defense. Ideally doesn't have any self-turn meter boost or any increased speed. You don't want anything to do with speed manipulation, but outside of that, anyone can run here. You could run the Thane if you wanted to. You could run Aina. You could run a Marksman. You could... Like, Whisper is an interesting option here, but you would probably want to go down the Deacon Eater route for Whisper so that Deacon provides the decreased defense, and then you get the full value of Whisper as well, because she is obviously based on Weaken. Now, you could just decide you don't really care about decreased defense and just run out and just abuse it with Whisper, because all she really requires is Weaken. You do lose the extra turn on the A3, but, you know, it could happen. But you can see by turn 38, we're at 100 million, which is really good. I mean, this is an epic champion. Apart from, this is 1 legendary and 4 epics. Now, sure, they're void epics, and one of them is a Force epic and a relatively new one, so trying to get hold of them is different. But if you have the Man-Eaters, and you're still not quite 1-keying, but you've got these other champions, you know you can commit the speed to it, then it could be an interesting option. The Lix is very fast. I will admit the speeds are very high. This is not exactly like the most, you know, free-to-play friendly build. I couldn't build this on my free-to-play because I don't have the Man-Eaters. But it's a variant of the Bateater. So let's just skip ahead and let's see how much damage it actually does then towards the end. So we can just see we're coming up here, turn 59, turn 49, 127 million. Then he's going on another extra turn cycle. There he goes, more turns, more. It's just, he's a monster. I'm pretty comfortable with saying that Mistrider Daithi will be the MVP for anyone's Faction Wars. If you have him, he is the guy you want to build for Faction Wars right now. He's the only one, I think, with AoE decreased defense. He is going to be the boss of Faction Wars, alongside like an Elva or an Oella support. So you can see that is the final run here. 129.99 million on probably the better affinity, because this is strong affinity for Daithi and neutral for everyone else. Obviously, the Man-Eaters don't really care about affinity. You can see that one of the Man-Eaters in the 6-star, he doesn't have the counterattack masteries yet, so he is losing out on a potential bit of damage alongside the Phantom Touch. So that there's a potential 1 to 2 million damage to be acquired from the Man-Eater on that on getting that mastery. But Mistrider Daithi here, 42 million for an epic 42 million. He's not even fully awakened or fully powered up yet, but 42 million. If we can get counter 6 on a Brimstone, that'll give us probably, based on the fact that she has 2 attacks on that challenge, she's already got the accuracy, at least 5 million more damage on counter 6, at least. Normally in an unkillable, the cap is 8.3 million if you can keep it up all the time. Doesn't mean it always works like that, but it's about 5 million, I would say. The Seeker could be improved further with more damage blessings. There's a lot of growth. We could easily get up to 140 million, 150 million with this team. And that's not saying that there isn't other champions that could do more damage than Daithi in this team. Ninja potentially could run in here if you can support his A1. His A1's a bit funky, but it could happen. There's also opportunities to run anyone who does severe amounts of damage in that slot as well with a relentless kind of setup. So yeah, that is the LixEater, guys. I'm enjoying doing clan boss teams on this account, and I was very surprised by how interested people were with the 4-1 Bateater. So I will probably do some different variants of this. I probably will find some different weird champions I can throw in here that you would never think about using to see what we can do to try and kind of like mix up the different types of matchups. But I'm really, really happy that after 18 months of trying, I have made a Bateater that doesn't require Painkeeper. We're going to call it we can call it the Daithi Eater, the LixEater. You want to call it whatever you want. Maybe in chat, in comments, let me know what kind of name you would give this clan boss team. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If you do want to see me do more clan boss teams, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and that'll tell me that this content is really hitting home and you're really enjoying it.